In accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, we are conducting this meeting in a hybrid model, both virtually and in person. The Public Works Commission is conducting this meeting on March 13th, 2024 at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Zoom platform and in person in accordance with the town's policy directive and guidelines issued on April 1st, 2020 and amended on May 7th. I ask that all Public Works Commissioners, town staff, and presenters activate their video and mute their microphone unless they have something to say or are participating in a committee dialogue. For members of the public, when I open the meeting to public comment, in order to be recognized, please use the raise hand option in Zoom or *9 by phone. If you are recognized, please state your name and address. Public comments will be limited to 15 minutes with no more than 2 minutes allocated to any one speaker. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for later viewing on the town's website. I, Andrea Solomon, hereby call this meeting to order. Should we do a roll call? Do we do a roll call? Okay, we're all here. So except for Jeff, Jeff is not here and will not be on Zoom either. Public comment will be heard on the last agenda item and is limited to 15 minutes with no more than 2 minutes allocated. If there's a particular relevant comment though to what we've just talked about, we can call on members of other committees, especially if they're here. Okay, to review and approve the minutes of February 14th, 2024 Public Works Commission meeting. Any comments? None?
I
Okay.
actually have a comment or question. On page 2 of the minutes, the last sentence of the top paragraph says the town is also considering reaching out to other vendors for proposals.
I'm sorry, can you say, Dave?
Top paragraph,
Yeah.
page 2.
Yeah.
Last line of top paragraph.
Okay,
The town is also considering reaching
Yeah.
out. I was under the impression that you would be getting other bids.
Sure.
Or unless there's some reason.
no, it's basically when it comes to this particular procurement, it's not required. And we are working with our present vendor.
Right.
If we can't come to something which is, clearly to our advantage and benefit, then we would, reserve, and we always reserve the right to go out beyond that. Aaron, do you have anything to add to that on the?
That's accurate.
Yeah, okay.
I just thought as a taxpayer, there might be one or two in town who are a little, questioning, why didn't you at least get another bid? And I don't understand the dynamics, obviously, of that particular procurement. So maybe there's a reason to only work with them, but.
Well, I will say, Dave, to the point of the whole process with solid waste management is it's not always advantageous to spin wheels going in directions outside, which is
Mhm.
why that law exists. However, the town, using kind of professional judgment, is certainly interested in the best value for the community, but it's been carved out differently for this very reason, that sometimes it's just, you're not gonna
Okay.
pursue a real viable, feasible alternative.
I just would want to have a good answer, if.
So
somebody
we
came
will,
in
we
and
will
asked-
work on that
and
as
asked
far
me,
as,
why not? Why
Exactly.
didn't you get other bids?
right.
So I don't want
Can you speak up?
to,
Yeah, come on up, Aaron, real quick. Aaron McCloskey, Highway Ground.
And I don't want to make a big deal.
No, understood. Understood.
Thank you, Aaron McCloskey, Highway Ground Superintendent. So we will be presenting to the commission, at a future meeting, to give an update on where we're at with the proposals. We met with, the vendor actually yesterday and got a proposal which I consider very advantageous to the town, with a overall reduction in cost moving forward. With some of the, including some of the services that we discussed during that meeting, such as automation, single stream, and electric truck as well. So,
Cool.
without going into too much detail, with all my notes in front of me, we'll be presenting that at a future meeting.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Thank you.
thanks.
But you're not proposing changing the minutes?
No, it just
You just have
occurred to me.
clarification question.
I'd say
And
clarification.
that is basically what we volunteered at the
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
Second.
No. Do I have a motion?
I do.
Make a
Now you
motion.
can.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimously, they pass. All right. Onto the calendar review for future meeting. Today's roads program. Town meeting prep, that seems serious. April 10th. Positions be taken on relevant articles. Okay, so that next one is pretty crucial.
So we have now 2 in April.
No, so I think there's an option of that date. We've always just sort of by tradition go with the second Wednesday of the month. For convenience and keeping kind of routine, given the schedule of town meeting, later in April. And, there's been some interest potentially to meet closer to town meeting, so the commission can have a better sense of where the community's coming from on some of these and sort of inform the discussion. It's certainly an option to, modify that date if there's a date that would work for you folks closer to town meeting. We could do the following Wednesday, if you think that's helpful. It's really your decision and your call.
Yeah, I think I had raised that idea independent and thought it would be a good idea to have it closer to town meeting and just have one meeting. I had more the Wednesday before town meeting, in mind, like the 24th. So, by that we could combine 2 meetings into one. And it would only need some kind of a last minute thing if there's really something critical, before the town meeting.
Yeah, and I will say, just out of sort of history, certain boards and committees do schedule a meeting right before town meeting, the same evening, to take care of any last minute,
Amendments.
amendments or things like that. So, but again,
I
those
think
are,
we just should post the meeting for town meeting. And if we need to get together, Andrew will find us.
So you're saying don't move the normal meeting?
No, that's a different question. I mean, Sven's question is a different one.
Yeah, mine is just to move it April 10th to April 24th, that we have really then time to get all the feedback from the hearings,
Mhm.
from all
Yeah,
the
that's right,
committees, to
Okay.
build everything in. And then, because otherwise we would have all these feedback for this short meeting before town meeting, and that's just too short for that. Yeah, so just giving more time to get feedback from all hearings and committees.
So skip the 10th, but go to the 24th.
This is
yeah, reschedule it.
reschedule, move the 10th to the 24th.
And then,
Or any other day, it could be also another weekday, doesn't need to be.
That's right. I mean, there's nothing, this is just convenience and
that work for you,
routine.
the 24th?
24th works for me.
Okay, well, so maybe we'll just double check with Jeff. I'll double check with Jeff, but let's move that to the 24th then. And then, if we need to meet before town meeting again, briefly,
We'll schedule a meeting, just post it.
Yeah.
And.
Yeah.
then-
but it'll have to be posted before the 24th. Because it has to be posted publicly, right?
Yeah, we can always post it the day
We
and
could do
time
it
and then
Thursday.
cancel it.
That's right.
short notice.
Cause we need 2 business days.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we post it Thursday, it's in plenty of time.
Yep.
For the 29th. Okay. All right, I'll make sure Jeff knows, because I would like all of us to be there on the 24th. Okay, all right, so next, we will go to discussion, possible, so D1 roads program 2024, is that Saul?
No, it's me.
Oh, it's you, okay, sorry.
Yeah, I'm Joe Cormier, Senior Public Works Engineer. Come on up here, Joe, if you could. Basically, as Joe's getting, he said, come on up, Steve. Steve Dukran, Town Engineer. Let me see if I can't get, on the Zoom here. I'm going to share screen. See how this works, share. Okay, we have success. This is, Steve, do you want to do the introduction? Because this is not a formal hearing, but maybe to set the table so Joe can get into the.
Yeah,
That'd be
yes,
helpful.
yes, well, thank you for having us again. We met with you last, I think it was September, and we talked about the general way we approach the pavement management program. And it's something we do every year, early in the fall. We, we give you a kind of this is how we approach the program. And then later on, months later, after we have done our analysis, selected streets and so on, and we will come back to you and hold a sort of public meeting. At the same time, we also try to reach out to the neighborhoods that will be impacted by the work, to get input from them. Sometimes they first, they want to know what's going on, and secondly, they want us to consider the issues that they're experiencing. And this year, we thought that we put those two together and bring that to you, and maybe we may get some good input that we will incorporate into our projects, which we are going to put out to bid soon. All right, Joe has done a lot of work. He inherited this program from Stefan, who you got used to seeing, and so just got a task ahead of him to get us done.
So, Joe, you want to, take
yeah.
us through what you're proposing as far as the?
Yeah, well, thank you, Steve. I am Joe, as Steve mentioned, and I'm the Senior Public Works Engineer. And I just want to go over a few topics related to the program. And as Alan mentioned, we did invite the abutting residents here to gather information, ask questions and provide comment. So these are just some of the topics we want to go over, kind of historical and future funding for the pavement management program, how we selected the streets to be included in the 2024 pavement management program, as well as an overview of the treatment types that we're going to be doing, just to kind of give the residents idea of what's to come. And then there'll be a portion at the end of it that they can ask questions and comment. So before we get into funding in depth, I just want to give a quick overview again of what the PCI and backlog is, just so everyone has an understanding. So the PCI stands for Pavement Condition Index, which is a rating that we give all of our street segments in town. It's a scale that's 1 to 100, with 1 being a road that's in really bad shape that needs to be repaired, and 100 being a really good street. So we have all the streets in town surveyed, we collect all the data, and it's given a PCI value. And then also with that is our backlog that we track. This is a monetary value, a cost to repair all of our roads to bring them to a near perfect condition. Obviously, it's not our goal to do that, just because it wouldn't be feasible. But it's a way to kind of benchmark how our program is working in the health of our roads. So historically, our budget's been around $2 million a year, and we've seen a decline in our PCI. So we reevaluated our program in 2022 to kind of look at, what money do we need to maintain our PCI, and what kind of money would we need to improve it to a more acceptable level. So right now it's a 66, which is considered fair, but obviously there's a lot of room for improvement. So we determined that a $3 million a year budget could maintain that PCI at a 66. But over time, our backlog would increase. So either deferring work, and that backlog increases, which is not a good indication of where our system is. So to improve our PCI to a mid-range of a 76, we would need a funding budget of around $4 million. So there is a little bit of a shortfall in funding that's available, and what we need to improve that. So it kind of puts an emphasis on where we allocate money and properly and efficiently doing that to gain the most out of what we have.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So the numbers on the backlog, if I look, let's say, the orange.
Yep,
is related to the $4 million budget.
it is, yes.
So the message at least what I read here is, if you're spending $4 million per year, the total amount spent is about $23 million, 23.5. And here, that looks fair, and we get better streets. But if you spend less, it's getting more expensive, and we get worse streets.
Yeah, so the $23 million is actually what the backlog
Or the
would
backlog at
be
that
if
time.
you spent yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
but it's a similar thing. It's getting significantly cheaper if we would spend at a higher level now.
Right, or the
Yes,
backlog will
yeah,
get
yeah, I
more
guess
than
that'd be the other
23
way,
million
of
if you
looking
don't
at it.
spend the four.
Yeah,
per year.
these are because these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years difference between 2 and 4 is 2,000,005, so $10 million more spent saves us significant dollars in backlog. Saves us in that case, but 2 million, what's the 2 million color? It's the,
Yeah, the
the
2
red
million's
number.
green there.
So
So
that
the-
is like a $30 million difference for spending $10 million more.
The green
So
is
the-
the 2 million.
The values that you're seeing on the right here, so this right-hand graph
Yeah,
is the increase in backlog if we spent
Yeah.
either $2 million or $3 million, and then kind of the approach on how we spend that money.
With this being the target.
With that being the target, right, which is roughly maintaining our current backlog. So yes, investing more money now would be more sustainable than it would be to spend less money
okay, that's very good.
over a period of time. So now that we've kind of looked at the network overall, we kind of zone in on the specific streets to kind of determine, you know, where we spend the money, what we spend the money on, as far as pavement management goes. So this graph, which I know you guys have seen before, is our our pavement deterioration curve. And as you see it, when a street is new, the PCI is 100 and the deterioration is fairly slow. And as it begins to deteriorate, the rate of deterioration significantly increases. And as you can see within this graph, there's different treatment bands, as far as routine maintenance, preventative maintenance, and and structural repair. And with that is the associated cost. So you can see the further the street deteriorates, the more money it is to repair. So the approach that we're taking is, instead of just throwing all our money at the base, at doing base rehab on streets that are in really bad shape, we want to kind of spread that money out throughout this entire curve, because the cost to do this maintenance is cheaper. So the way we do that is we have a pavement management software called StreetLogix, that analyzes all this PCI data and kind of generates a priority list for us to say, hey, this is where you should target your money. Now, again, that's looking at just the pavement management aspect of it. Obviously, there's a lot more that goes into it. So we do field inspections. Obviously, utility coordination and needs have a big impact on that. Our known needs in town that also play a role. So yes, it generates a list for us, but there's a lot of input that also goes into it. So after we run the data and we've kind of looked at the list, this is the proposed list for the 2024 construction season. As you can see, that we have multiple different treatments that we're going to be doing. There's reconstruction, mill and overlays, which are your traditional reconstruction methods. And there's also preservation treatments in there as well, that are going to target maintenance of streets. So we have microsurfacing, fog sealing, crack sealing. Again, this work hasn't been put out to bid yet, so this list isn't concrete. It's gonna adjust and change with the bid pricing we receive, and the available funding that we have at the time, that we award the contract. So right now our bidding is going out in the next couple of weeks. By the middle of May, we should have, by the middle of April, we should have a good idea of what we get for bids. And then hopefully we have a contractor on board by middle of May, with construction starting soon thereafter. As far as getting to schedule any more than that, it's difficult not having a contractor on board yet. But that's kind of the overall gist of the construction. One thing that I didn't include on this list is crack sealing. That is a big part of our pavement management program. but it's very impactful. It doesn't really have an impact on a butter, so I didn't feel the need to include it on this.
So Joe, before you go, about halfway down where it says Old Bedford Street,
Yep,
it's actually Bedford Street is going it's going from Old Bedford Road to the town line. Yeah, I don't think you're doing Old Bedford.
okay, you think.
Old Bedford goes from Lexington to Bedford.
Okay, I was thinking it was the other way around. Okay,
So it's just.
Yes, yes,
It's just the
yes.
names of the streets.
okay. I will definitely note that.
And I believe that many or maybe all of the abutters have gotten notice of the fact that their road is a likely candidate for 2024
Oh,
pavement management.
because of that error, okay.
Because I'm aware
Oh, yeah,
of one
okay.
street that's on there where
I see, yeah,
family members live.
okay.
Sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no, that's good.
No, almost all is unfortunate.
So this is just a map here of the selected streets and the various treatments that are being done.
Can I ask a question? Do you do comparative data, comparing yourself to other towns, comparing us to other towns, particularly around, like Lexington
Yeah,
or Weston or Bedford or Acton?
yeah, so we have looked at it a couple towns, specifically Bedford and Lexington, we've looked into. And I believe their PCI is up around 80, which is significantly
So
higher.
Bedford is approaching 80,
Yeah.
Lexington is actually approaching 90, maybe
And
well.
why the
Do we
difference?
know the budget?
Yes, Lexington, they've been doing this program for a while. In fact, they've been awarded, and they've got a national award for their program. They currently spend around 3 million a year. I'm not sure I know what Bedford's.
Yeah, I don't know their road network either, how extensive it is.
What's the difference? What?
So I know at least for Bedford, they've been implementing the pavement preservation stuff, those treatments for a lot longer than we have. And that could be a factor why.
So think of this, I'm gonna just use an analogy I use, and it's for you and people at home, and I need to get my arms around this. I think it is sort of like your dentist. And if your teeth are in bad conditions and you haven't been maintaining them, when you
Right.
go to the dentist, it's more painful
Yep.
and more expensive.
Yep.
To turn it around to whether it's crowns or cavities that need to be filled or you name it. When you deteriorate, it requires a lot to get back to whatever. Sometimes you don't restore, you replace. And some of these minor costs or lesser costs are the preventative things, sort of the cleaning, the fluoridation, the things that you would do to prevent things from happening. And, I think they've got to the point where they're in good condition, 80 and potentially 90, which is the goal, so that the cost per year is less.
Yeah.
The quality of service is better. And, you're forever playing catch up, but Concord hasn't gotten there yet. We haven't done that investment. And the preservation techniques that we're talking about are some of those tools to help us get there. So it just, if that helps understand, once you're in better condition, the cost to maintain it is less.
I like the analogy that someone gets their teeth cleaned 4 times a year.
Mhm.
What I'm wondering is, so what you're saying is Concord really missed, we didn't do this for a while. We sort of neglected this investment or underinvested in our roads for.
We've underinvested in our roads, yes.
For some time.
Yeah.
What I'm also worried about, though, is it seems like there's a chronic sort of gap between what you say we need in
Mhm.
terms of dollars, ideally, to bring, and what we're hearing from the town offices we're gonna get,
Mhm.
right? And is that gonna stay? If that gap is gonna continue permanently, this is only gonna get.
It's the conditions are gonna get worse and the costs are gonna get greater.
Yes.
So we've heard this is not the first time I've heard this.
Yeah.
Because now all these terms are familiar to me and they weren't at first, because I've heard this a lot. So what do we do to change that? Like, you're going over, this is just an update on your projects that you're prioritizing because you only got half of what you asked for. So now what?
So at the FinCom, just recently, at the hearing on the capital and debt plan for the town, the town manager is sort of volunteered that she's well aware of this gap. There was information that was presented there with an acknowledgement that the system we have isn't working, and there is a commitment to try and understand to the degree of even considering going out to borrow, maybe debt exclusion of a larger investment up front, which can be paid off over time to try and allow us to sort of capture, catch up and then maintain. But we're now looking at a 20-year window, not a year-to-year window. The year-to-year window is really where we get challenged and compromised. If we do this over a longer period of time, there will be an opportunity to play some of that catch up. And if we had $5 million to spend in a year one, and 4 in year two, and 4 in year three, we'd be getting ahead of the game. We'd also be more competitive when it comes to the quantities and the contractors and schedules that we can set. That would allow us not to wait till the spring to compete with other contracts that are already awarded. And so there's some efficiencies that we're looking at, but that has basically, because of the message, Andrea, that you're aware of, this message is also being registered outside within the FinCom, town manager's office, and we will continue to press to try and say, we need a different approach. This one isn't working. And I think it takes time, but I think it's starting to be heard.
So Lexington always funded their roads. That's why they didn't fall
Yeah,
far.
my guess is, I'm going back 10 years, they started a robust program like this. And so they have really caught up and they're maintaining at this higher level.
They have they have like 90 miles of road. We have 108 miles of road. That's pretty close.
Yeah.
The Cambridge Turnpike project was another sort of major initiative that sucked up a lot of the town's resources when it came to the road program. And that was back in, when did it start? 2018?
Around there,
Yeah, 17, 18. And regrettably, it was such a large initiative that it took a lot of the resources and focused it, even though there was state funding involved to support it. That became sort of detracted from some of the other roads in town.
Yeah, so I was at a FinCom hearing, and I think it's loud and clear out there that town needs to invest more in the streets. And even the transportation committee issued an official statement that the chair was up and saying this needs to improve. And there was discussion to put this into tier 3 capital, which is longer term debt. Wong-Wei, do you know how long tier 3 is amortized? Is this 20 years?
I don't know that, but most of the borrowing the town goes through is 20 years.
That helps if you think about on an annual basis, if in total, 15 million or so is borrowed over time, over 20 years, it's less than $1 million plus interest, so it's still below $1 million impact on the town budget. So that's good. Another question, given your long list of postponed streets.
That's right.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's coming next.
Yeah.
Okay, then go ahead.
Yeah, so these streets here are the streets that we intended to get done last year, but we didn't. There was delays in getting the contractor on board, later in the season, which there was also weather difficulties and then scheduling, just because it pushed the contractor up, further and further, and we weren't on the top of their list because we didn't contract them first in the year. So those were some delays that caused us to push the work to this year. But we do have a completion date of June 30th as of right now to get this work done.
That's
So
quite
do you-
a bit of work.
It
Do
is,
you
yeah, it is.
expect a similar kind of long list of delays from streets that are on the first list for this year, pulling over to next year? Or do you expect to catch up on all of that plus the list for this year?
So just last year, because it got pushed off so far, we didn't have that construction window, which is already smaller. This year, with bids going out in the next couple of weeks, we're gonna be months ahead of that schedule. So I don't expect nearly as much work that got pushed off last year to get pushed off again this year. We anticipate to get most of the work complete.
And on the current list, the Main Street one, that goes along Concord Academy.
It does, yes,
So you need to do that in the summer break.
correct. And I also know that they have a summer program there too.
Yeah, but it's not so much parking for that. Right
Okay.
now they use up all the parking
Yep,
because they have their construction going on. So,
yep,
okay. That's the summer project then.
yeah. Yeah, I'm actually scheduled to meet with Concord Academy next week to talk about this paving, some construction they have going on. So that'll be brought up then too.
Yeah.
Just to kind of coordinate with them. This is just a visual map of the work that we're doing. So a lot of this, like the fog sealing work, there's quite a bit of it. It's touching a lot of streets, but it's a very quick process. They can get quite a bit of work done in a couple days. So I just wanted to give a quick overview of each treatment, what they're doing, what to expect, and kind of the benefits they provide. So I'll start with fog sealing as like kind of a first line of defense when it comes to maintenance of our streets. So this is a very it's very low cost treatment. It's typically done to roads that are in fairly good condition already, but they're starting to lose their qualities of new pavements. They start to become brittle and crack. And the fog sealing that's applied kind of rejuvenates that and keeps the pavement flexible. Like I said, it's a very quick process. They can do a street within a few hours in a single day. So it's minimally invasive, low impact on abutters. The second treatment that we're doing is crack sealing. This is applied to streets that are deteriorated slightly. They start to show some cracking. We clean the cracks, we apply a crack sealer to it. It seals the surface of the street so water can't penetrate it. And it slows the deterioration down by doing that. The third treatment is microsurfacing. This is another preservation treatment. This is applied to streets that are deteriorated a little bit further beyond what say a crack sealing can do. And it also addresses unevenness in the road. It applies a protective layer to the surface of the road. And it helps slow oxidation down. And it seals the road and gives it a uniform surface when it's complete. The traditional reconstruction methods that we're going to be deploying are mill and overlays and reconstruction. The mill and overlay is slightly more invasive than the microsurfacing, where it removes the top 1.5 to 3 inches of asphalt. It mills that surface off. We truck it away. We sweep that milled surface, and then we pave back that 1.5 inches that we took out. This is a little bit longer of a process, depending on the length of street that we're doing, and the traffic that we have to work with. It could take up to several days. There's a little bit more traffic impact than it would, say a preservation treatment. but the outcome to a typical person looks like a brand new road. Which is definitely a huge plus for that. And it's less expensive than doing a full depth reconstruction. So then the most intensive treatment that we're doing is a full reconstruction, where it pulverizes the road, brings it into a gravel state, and it mixes up that existing asphalt into that soil structure that's beneath the road that holds it up. And then the road's regraded, and then it's paved back on top of that. So when we do a reconstruction like this, we can address more issues. If there's drainage issues, grading issues, we can kind of amend those with the grading at that time. So this here is just our discussing how we coordinate our utilities and try to get them ahead of our paving program. So we coordinate with gas, electric, water, and try to minimize the cuts that have to occur after our paving. So we want to push that off as much as we can. So in the letter that we sent out to the residents, we're encouraging them to coordinate with us and their utility provider to try to get their service connections done, or any other underground utilities that are going to affect the road prior to us paving. So that's an important process, because cutting to the road, it deteriorates the road quicker. And we want to avoid that as much as possible. And part of that too is Concord does have a roads moratorium, which discourages cutting into the road. It doesn't prohibit it, but it does put in place fees that are applied to kind of discourage it.
Yes, that's it.
Any other questions? Is there anyone online who has?
Yeah, I'll
questions?
take a look and see if we can see, you can sort of ask, I guess, Andrea, if anybody,
I can't see it.
okay,
Actually, I have a question.
Hi, Terry.
go ahead, Terry, we can hear you, yeah.
Oh, yes, thank you. How long does a mill overlay typically last? Because I see this section of Sudbury Road on the list here that I'm pretty sure was just done a few years ago from Route 2 southward. So how long does a mill overlay typically last?
So it depends on the depth of the mill and overlay that's being performed. I know in the past Concord typically did 1.5 inch mill and overlay. Which would vary on how long it lasted, depending on the type of road it was on and the traffic loading. So for 1.5 inch mill and overlay, you could see anywhere from 8 to 10 years. This year we're proposing a little bit deeper mill and overlay, which should last 10 years plus, 10 to 12 years.
Well, I'm pretty sure that section and Sudbury Road was done less than 5 years ago.
Okay.
So, if someone could check on that, I'm surprised to see it on the list again. But I love those PCI graphs. I tried to write in on the chat. They're really important at town meeting. A picture just shows in 1,000 words how much better the investment is if you invest at the right time of the PCI curve. So I think your message is getting out there. Transportation Committee and other citizens are starting to really make some noise about the roads now. So hopefully by this time next year, we'll have a funding plan.
Thank you.
Can I
See,
ask a
Carlin
question?
Reed has a hand up.
Hi, Carlin.
Where is the hand raising function? I don't see it on this menu.
Hi, it's Carlin Reed. The hand raising function is down under reactions, by the way. Carlin
Great,
Reed,
thanks.
sure. I'm a member of the Finance Committee, but speaking on my own behalf. So Alan, I'm getting the message that you're planning to do a warrant article for next year that might do a bond anticipation note of about $20 million, which would allow you to do $5 million 1 year, then bring it on down. Is that the hint I'm getting?
I think I wouldn't say a number yet. It's gonna be based on the needs and sort of working with our finance director and the FinCom. But yes, it's gonna be a multi-year investment paid back over a longer period of time, but it's gonna increase our investment in the short years out so that we can decrease them in the future years out. That's the model that's being discussed.
Got it. Okay, sort of like the Nagog Pond PFAS approach, right?
Actually, I'd say it's a different model and that this is, ongoing investment in roads. And it's going to be to invest more earlier on so we can invest less in the future. So the Nagog is a specific project, for instance. This is a level of investment approach.
So based on the charts we saw, these PCI and cost charts, is every dollar we spend on a short term, let's say in the next 4 to 5 years to catch up, saves us about $3 in the long term. So that's the logic.
Got it. I understand the logic. Thank you very much.
Okay, I see Fran Lewitter. Fran? You unmute yourself? Can you do that?
There we go.
There we
Okay.
go. Yeah.
Fran Lewitter, 77 Temple Road. I want to thank Joe. I've been in touch with him over the year, and I really appreciate that that Temple Road is under consideration for full reconstruction because it's sorely needed. I have some questions though. One thing you didn't discuss, and I assume this gets discussed as once you actually have the bids in and or the bids are awarded to contractors, but how long does that usually take for a construction project for full reconstruction? And I realize it depends on the length of the streets. So that's one question. Another question is, will you do the same width that is currently the width of the street, or do you increase that? I mean, there are some gardens along close to the road, and I want to know how those would be affected. And were you saying that it's not 100% sure that we will get done this year, or is it just based on once you get the awards in? I think that's it.
So yeah, the as far as schedule goes, we're gonna try to get all of the work that's on this list done this year. Again, too, the list could vary depending on the bids we get, so it's not a guarantee. But it is our hope that we will get it all done this year. As far as paving width goes, for the road, we do try to put the road back in the same width. With taking into consideration, drainage that has to be met. If there's excess pavement somewhere, we try to reduce that. But there's implications when we try to change the width of the road. So for the most part, we try to match the existing width that is presently out there.
In fact, I just want to dovetail on that. One of the other considerations for this roads program is it is specifically to repair, restore, replace existing conditions, not to change them significantly. If there was a significant change, that would be a different review and planning process. And that would be one that we'd come back to the commission to talk about the roads program, an impact on the immediate, the environment, the more, complex. We're not at that point. There's no consideration of, sort of taking down trees to make this, to occur, stone walls. I just put it out there because, again, the commission has that sensitivity to all the roads in town, not, any unique areas. And those are sorts of things that would require a more of a discussion. These are really just to kind of address existing conditions and not expand on that.
Yeah.
So just as overarching comment to the question on what's the road width.
And I'll add, that's why this program is called pavement management. It's all about addressing pavement. And PCI is the key factor in it, as well as the functionality, how much traffic and so on. Yeah, the question
The
also.
schedule.
Yeah.
Right, so yeah, I mean, so if you're specifically asking about Temple Street, you know, typically. A project of that size would be a couple days of reclaiming, which would be pulverizing the road, a couple days of grading, and a day or so of paving. That's if everything goes smoothly and there's no weather implications or any, you know, anything that wasn't. If there was no surprises, it would go that quickly.
So then if-
Okay, yeah, we have,
Well, then-
thank you.
Can I just ask, so then I assume you'll be in communication with us or after, when things are closer to getting done?
Yes, we will. So for a project like this, when we come in and reclaim a whole street, we typically try to have a neighborhood meeting prior, where the contractor attends, I attend, and we kind of talk about construction phasing, access to properties, what to expect. So that typically happens before construction, and then we send out a notice 2 or 3 days prior to us coming in there, just to let you know of when the work's exactly gonna be happening.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I see, Gary Newman. Gary?
Yes, hello. So I noticed it says that Hayes Road is going to get a deep rebuilding. And about 10 years ago, when the power lines were put underground on Main Street, they also redid part of Hayes Road. And I believe that either they made a terrible mistake or that there's something lacking in the planning for the road construction, because they redid about, I'd say the first 50 feet or so of Hayes Road. And that has badly deteriorated very quickly after that work was done. I know that in Germany, they put in a much bigger, deeper underlayment before doing the paving. And I was wondering if part of the plans in Concord included intersections like that on the side roads, including a heavier underlayment, because in that spot where the roads tee together, the side roads get used almost every day by heavy trucks doing construction and work on homes within, I don't know, a few hundred yards either direction. There's always trucks parked there, heavy trucks, tree trucks and things. So that road deteriorates very, very quickly. So I was wondering, is that built into the plan at all, so that at intersections like that, at least T intersections, that the side roads get a deeper underlayment?
So not so much intersections themselves, but in this case, and what's slated for Hayes Road is to address the underlying soil there by reclaiming it, and we reclaim approximately a foot under the existing pavement. So that should improve the soil qualities and the structural integrity of that soil. So it should help that issue.
Okay, so I guess I'm asking, it sounds like there is no specific consideration given to intersections for this kind of thing, yet it seems to happen all the time around town. That especially at T intersections again, anytime there's contractors working on homes within 100 yards either direction of the intersection, the contractors always park on that side street T intersection, and they usually park heavy trucks there. So it puts a huge beating on that part of the road. By the way, I'm on North Branch Road. I'm a little further down, 115 North Branch Road. I just thought that considering what the Germans do on their highways and things to give it more longevity, I thought that perhaps just for the first few hundred feet of of Hayes Road, it would make sense to do something like that, to avoid turning to potholes, which is what it is right now. It's just all potholes.
Yeah, we can definitely look into it, and I can see what was done prior, to see if that could have something to do with how it deteriorated so quickly. I'm thinking if it was done in conjunction with a utility project, it might not have got done to the quality that we're going to be doing it. And that could be a reason why as well.
Yeah, the design standards we use are industry standards for this region, right?
They are, yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of a, and there is obviously, at the end of the day, a cost benefit to everything that we're talking about. Obviously, the question on special consideration for T intersections, what I'm hearing is engineer design standards do not sort of call that out, despite the fact that, you know, we may see this.
So let me just add something here. So the way the streets are divided in this program, so take Main Street, for instance, right? It's very long, it's Route 62 from end to end. It's broken up into portions. Because you simply can't put all the money on
Mhm.
one long street. So we have, how many segments we have in town?
Over 400.
Yeah, so 400 something segments. And we look at a street, we look at the the limits of the street, right? From one end of the segment to the other end of the segment, and it's really within that right of way. You get to an intersection, you may just go a few feet in the intersection to clean it up, but that side street is altogether not a segment in the program. So when that segment comes up for treatment, then that is addressed at that point in time.
Okay, we have Tim Rose. Tim?
Yes, thank you. I'm Tim Rose, 97 Bartlett Hill Road. This is a very parochial question, but on your list that you just put up there, you've got both Ripley Hill and Martin Road going down to the cul-de-sac, but on Bartlett Hill, you have end point on number 71 Martin Road. Is that a typo of some sort? Is it supposed to be you're not going to do all of Bartlett Hill Road? You're going to stop at 71, number 71, but it would be on Bartlett Hill Road, not Martin Road, I assume.
So are you,
If you could
so
put up,
on,
if you see
I'll go
that
ahead.
list, you listed there.
Yeah, let me see if I can
Yeah,
bring that
that's,
back up.
that's what it shows.
Yeah, so the pavement deterioration on that street is significantly changes in front of that house. So that's why that treatment ends halfway down that street.
No, wait a minute. You've got number 71 Martin Road. Isn't that what you've got on the Bartlett Hill terminus, the end of part?
Let me go.
Take
I'm
a
gonna
look
go
at
to
it.
this list right here. I'm sorry, just gotta share. So is that on?
24.
There,
Right here.
right. You see Bartlett Hill, it says ending at number 71.
Right here.
Oh,
on
so you're,
road.
okay, yes, that should be 71 Bartlett Hill Road.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So that means you won't get down to our house, which was great. Answered several of my other questions. And what are you going to do with our? It basically is almost on the street.
Yeah,
That won't be touched. Terrific. Thank you very much.
Sorry for the typo.
Yeah.
Okay, so those were all the questions from,
No one else has raised. All right, so, did anyone else have anything to say about the roads program update?
Thank you for all your good work.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
okay.
So we'll move on to the stormwater bylaw.
When,
Oh, no, yeah. but
when to be
stormwater
posted,
is
what do you
now
want?
in order.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We went to, one of the attachments needed an update. It did not show the. markups.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
Yes,
in
Thank
the
you.
packet?
yeah.
Oh,
I do know. Thank you.
see if I can pull this up. Stormwater. Not the red line. Was this the red line version?
Yes.
It is. Okay, so I will try and pull this up on the screen as well, so.
And maybe,
people at home can
maybe
see
wasn't
that.
the latest is what.
Okay.
we looked at.
I sent it to Linda, so she
Oh.
might have put it in the folder.
Okay, Linda, if you're listening, you know, is it in the folder and where?
It is the fourth one down. It's the update 3/7/24. 2.6.24 version. It's in the stormwater folder and it's
All right,
the
I'm pulling it up. Let me see. It says can't complete the action. Okay, huh. Linda, can you bring it up possibly and post it?
want me to
Because right
share my
now-
screen, is that what you mean?
Yeah, if you share your screen, then I
All
think we can, that would be good.
All right, hang on.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, so Saul, why don't you tee this up?
Okay, so as you know, we've been making some revisions to the bylaw to incorporate some of the comments that were made here in the February meeting. Like we mentioned before, the bylaw is meant to stay to provide framework, but leave a lot of the really meaty details to the PWC to work through over the coming year. And so some of the revisions we've made, we added a new section 1. So what used to be section 1 was definitions, we've added general provisions. So all the sections will have shifted. And the general provisions is kind of just giving background to the bylaw. It's establishing the title and the purpose of the bylaw. Section 2, we just added a couple more definitions, specifically defining impervious surface. Section 3 and 4 kind of largely remain unchanged. I think section 3, we specified that not all stormwater facilities will be maintained or be under the responsibility of the town, just specifically those accepted and owned by the town. So no private, no private dry wells are going to be maintained by the town. And section 5, we've added explicit language to say that the PWC will be the rate setting authority. And we've also outlined that the rate changes wouldn't occur more than once a year. Section 6, which deals with billing procedures, late fees, credits. What we've done is we've taken out the language that would have provided abatements to tax exempt land uses pursuant to MGL Chapter 59. And that's in keeping with the idea of maintaining the stormwater enterprise fund as something that would be fair and equitable to all those in town, all those paying in town. And then section 7 is just a way for an appeals process. But no changes were really made to this area except for some grammar issues. And then on the article itself, it was recommended that we just flip 1 and 2. So we're going to ask
authorization.
Authorization for the enabling legislation first. And then so I think what the PWC needs to discuss today, so that we can finalize the bylaw prior to presenting this to town council, is to discuss whether or not town-owned property is going to be assessed a fee.
Discuss what?
Whether town-owned property will be assessed a fee. And I think that's kind of the last kind of major hanging item that we have for the bylaw, unless anything else comes up, of course.
So our public schools are counted as town property or school district property?
I believe it would be considered town-owned property.
The intent is to be inclusive of all parcels. And initially, the question would be, well, town-owned, well, we're paying taxes on that, or we double dipping, and that was the issue. So Sven, the goal is school, town-owned, state, federal, we're gonna be assessing fees to be equitable. So, at this point, as far as technicality, for instance, the Concord Carlisle High School, you know, I'm not exactly sure how. We can get some clarification on that one. The intent would be yes. When
Yes,
we,
what?
Yes, that they would be assessed a
Yes.
fee.
Yeah.
That would be the
I
intent.
think, I'm not getting this double taxation argument, because if town-owned property, let's say high school is excluded, that cost for the stormwater is still somewhere.
Mhm.
So that would be then sitting on the cost of people that are getting assessed.
That's right.
So the cost is there anyway. It's just where when they're included in it, then the cost goes to the general fund, so to the taxpayer or other sources. So it's just where the money comes from. And then there's no incentive suddenly for like large public lots and so on to think about reducing or doing things for reducing stormwater. So there's not a double.
No, I'm
taxation,
just saying what
only
we've
where
heard
the
is
money
a
comes from.
concern.
Does it
Correct.
come from the taxpayer, or does it come from the lot owners who are assessed? So I'm in favor to just do the same, what we, I think, do the same for water and others, where the town is getting assessed for usage of it. And then there's at least an incentive to look at improvements.
And just to provide a little more context, so town-owned property equates to about 8% all impervious area in town. So there's a roughly around 14 million square feet of town-owned impervious area, excluding roadways, which are not technically owned by the town. And that would be around 750 ERUs. And if you recall, an ERU is 5,500 square feet. So if we're looking at, $100 fee, it would be 75,000.
Yeah, that's.
These are really important questions that we need to have.
Well, it's
answer.
more than we're getting from the town now. 75,000 is
Yeah.
more than the 25,000 you're getting now.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying.
No. In fact, I want to be very clear. What the town is paying is not what's being allocated in the budget. It's paying more because it's unanticipated
Right.
and
Yeah.
not funded.
Yes, yes,
We're
right.
spending money.
Monument Street.
Yes.
That's right.
Right.
And you know, what's going on at Ministerial Drive are costs the
Yes.
towns bear. So
Right.
the budget is just artificially
Yeah.
low.
That's true.
And, you know, we just need to remember that.
I just can see these questions coming up at town meeting. That's why I'm saying it's really important to have these, to get clear on how we're gonna answer them.
And part of this is the framework, and this was based on some feedback with our town council, with our third-party consultant who has been setting up these enterprise systems across the Commonwealth. And we made a decision that we wanted not just we'll get to it eventually, but this framework's important because it talks about concepts of responsibilities, clearly stating that the Public Works Commission will have authority for setting rates, clearly establishing what properties will be assessed a fee, whatever the commission determines is fair and equitable, establishing that there will be credits, in the bylaw, again, which is something that we've considered. So, and really it's been your input that's been helpful to say, yeah, let's capture these now. And then at this point, we also know the needs are somewhere in the $1.5 million to $2 million a year based on the work that we've done and working with our consultant and seeing what other communities are investing. So that's important for the community to understand what level of needs are we talking about. And the rates are going to be established to try and match or offset the costs that have been identified. How we assess those rates are to be determined. That's the
Did the
detail.
consultants say that most other towns who have implemented this do charge the town property the fees?
Good question.
I think it's probably been like 50-50. I
Okay.
don't think it's, been pushed one way or the other.
So I have a question. I think you said that town-owned properties are 8% of all impervious surface in the town,
Mhm.
but it's only it would only result in a $75,000 fee based on, the estimates of the consultant. How are we gonna get $1.5 million
From, yeah,
out of 92%?
Yeah,
See, I'm thinking that
good question.
well, so that, so.
if that was 10%, then that would mean $750,000 would be our budget. And we're thinking it's $1.6 million or something, so it didn't make sense to me. That's the reason I don't know what the question is, but that's my point.
A good question.
Yeah, I'll have to circle back just to verify that that number is accurate that we received, but
But the answer is based on $100, so it may
Yeah.
not be $100 per ERU. It could be
Oh,
more.
okay,
Yeah,
the
so-
residential was 225, or the one that had residential being a flat 225. The ERU was 225, so I can multiply that by 2.25, so it's 150, 200,000.
Mhm.
So now my budget makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not 75,000, it's probably 200,000.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, before I came here, I thought that the town shouldn't be, but based on what Sven said, which is all property owners should therefore have a good reason to reduce stormwater runoff and to put mitigation in there as much as possible, then the town should be in the same position as all of our property owners of the town. So I've changed my thought, thanks to your.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have a question that's different. It's about process here, and I'm sorry, but I'm trying to understand, you're creating a bylaw. We're creating a bylaw here. What is the outcome we want? We want to vote at town meeting this year to say yes to
Adapting the bylaw.
adopting the bylaw. I'm trying to step back now, because I know nobody that I know is gonna read this, is gonna understand truthfully, is gonna absorb it, be about 90% of it, a little bit. And some of the questions you raised are good. What I'm trying to understand and argue for is somewhere in here there's gotta be a statement of the problem. And I don't care where that is, but it may be in the front end of the actual article. But there has to be, it's just, otherwise it's too abstract. I don't
It's gotta be
understand.
part of the presentation.
Okay, it
Right.
just has to be, they have to be right up front. It has to be the thing. Otherwise, I don't understand what I'm even discussing.
Right.
Stormwater doesn't mean anything. to
Correct.
me.
We haven't seen the presentation that will be given yet, right?
Yes.
Correct, we have
It's
not,
been
yeah,
submitted
that's right,
at
that's
different
right. In fact,
meetings.
what we're, and so Dave, your point is the education aspect of why, yes, we hear you loud and clear, and that's gonna be included in our presentation
Way up
for
front,
town meeting.
at the very front,
Correct.
because otherwise.
That's right.
None of this stuff makes sense to me.
When's the first time we can see that presentation?
Tom, that's gonna be,
Tomorrow?
no, so right now, we're in the process of trying to finalize something for the FinCom hearing next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
I'm sorry,
Thursday.
Thursday is the
Stormwater.
stormwater. And so we are working on that presentation. We almost had it ready to go,
Okay.
but part of it's going to be, well, what is the motion? And
Okay.
what is, and a great discussion was, were we gonna have a bylaw or not?
Mhm.
And we've agreed that there will be a bylaw. And David, to the point of those who do care and want to know some of the framework, we're not shy, we're sharing that.
Yeah.
This is the process and why. But I think the overarching, why do we need this? What is it? Hear you loud and clear. I think too often times we get into the weeds and it's just too quick. So I think we have to look at our presentation. And I think the way we have it, we have sort of some of the language, but also some visuals as
Visual
far as what is the
pictures,
problem,
yeah.
right? And we're not giving you that benefit. We're gonna be talking to the FinCom tomorrow night. They're more interested in the mechanics,
Yeah,
you know, but for the town
Get the
meeting,
vote.
yeah, we
The
will get.
presentation won't be tomorrow, it'll be.
No,
at the
that's
next
correct.
meeting.
Tomorrow's gonna be a discussion much like this one.
I think I saw other people in a different meeting respond very strongly and understandably to the issues of when you do push stormwater down the road, that you have these very expensive projects like Ministerial Drive, these emergency, super expensive projects, so that's something that's good to highlight.
Yeah, and the flooding that,
But
you
yeah,
know,
flooding.
people are seeing,
I
yeah.
mean, we never really talked much about the Nashotah area, but that whole thing could have been way worse.
That's right.
But that's an issue of flooding.
So what do you guys think about town, whether the town should be included?
I think Sven made a great point.
Yeah.
That it's, and I think that one of the reasons that was given for having a stormwater utility is to keep this fair, like a fair way of having the costs go to everyone who uses town property instead of just taxpayers all the time, like taking everything out of that tax base. Like this is a fee that you pay when you use town property, and it incentivizes you to mitigate stormwater runoff if you have to pay more if you don't.
And I think the case needs to be made, you know, up front of why it's in the, because it isn't a reallocation of, instead of having DPW always coming out of their budget to fix the
Well,
problem.
it's coming out of roads
Right.
improvements, and so that's another thing that we didn't really
Yeah.
Emphasize. Our $2 million for road preservation continues to subsidize these other needs,
Unexpected, yeah.
and they're not planned. And
Right.
so that 2 million isn't even a pure 2 million that we're spending. It's frustrating to the engineering division who's trying to plan, and you say, this is what we hope to address, given available funds, bids that we haven't received. So we don't know what the true value is, and are other upsets gonna occur that have to be paid for, and there's no other source of funds.
Mhm.
So, and anyway, that's just, and basically, again, this has been very helpful, this whole process.
Yeah.
You folks have really helped guide the process, and let's be clear, Dave. Some people will pay no attention to it and just see, you know, they don't wanna hear.
Too complicated.
But we're giving them an opportunity, and those who are engaged, we have, you know, had some success talking to the sustainability group. We've talked to, the
NRC?
NRC. We'll be talking to the FinCom, the select board we've offered to, but we've talked to the, business partnership. You know, there's been more interest in Concord in business community, and this is Concord, than what we hear from our consultants anywhere else. So we've engaged, we're not, you know, shying away from the messaging, but, you know, we'll try to get some pictures and stories that help.
And I remind you, we had a public meeting in November or December. Well-attended public meeting, and we
Right.
introduced this whole.
Harvard Wheels.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
That was super helpful.
Yeah.
So I guess the only other thing is that you now need to renumber the sections.
Yeah, and we will
Because
just,
the memo I didn't understand, but now I understand it because it was based on this document, not that. the old-
yeah, and we will have this go to council to look at the format and the mechanics.
Yep.
So that, and that's another thing we'll be doing within the next 48 hours. Once we get your buy-in, and this is not a second draft, this is the proposal.
Mhm.
We've been talking about some drafts, but it hasn't gone anywhere but here. So this is really gonna be the recommendation as far as the bylaw that's going to be attached or referenced within the warrant.
Then I would hope that once we have the hearing at the enterprise fund next Thursday,
Mhm.
depending on what we hear, we get this up on the website
Exactly.
as quickly as
Oh,
possible.
yeah, it'll be part of the hearing for next Thursday.
Any more questions from the commission?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we're gonna, we actually need an action item on this
Oh,
one.
do we have
Was there
questions?
any-
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, let's see on, I have to go to my Zoom to see, I see a hand raised. I see two, hold on 1 second, let me stop sharing, no. That's not my screen. I have Carlin Reed is the first hand I see. So,
Thank you. Actually, Dave B was up before me, but if you want to take me.
oh,
first,
okay, I'm
that's fine.
sorry, yeah. Dave, are you there?
Yes, I am. Hi, this is Dave Bakuti. I'm an Acton resident, and I'm here partially on behalf of the Acton Water Resources Advisory Committee. But when you started talking about this subject, you mentioned that in section 2 definitions, you added the definition of impermeable surface. And I did want to ask whether that addresses the semi-permeable paving used in parking areas.
That is something we'll be discussing with the PWC over the coming year. So yes, gravel roadways, for analysis purposes usually is considered, at 90% impermeable. So we have to figure out how we're gonna define roadways.
I'm not talking about a gravel, I'm talking about a particular type of paving that is intentionally designed to be permeable to water for exactly this purpose.
Oh, so you mean like, yeah,
Porous pavement.
porous pavement? Well, if that will come down in the credits and abatements policy. So yes, if somebody puts in, if business puts in porous pavement or porous cement, that would be something that the PWC will discuss and possibly include in a credit and abatement policy.
And I would also, be clear, porous pavement is porous if it's maintained.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's an important, aspect to consider.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Carlin?
Thank you, Carlin Reed, 83 Witsand, again with the Finance Committee, but speaking on my own behalf. How are you going to allocate costs for enterprise funds? For example, the light plant, that's town-owned property, but costs assigned to the light plant flow through to the electric ratepayers, right? Did your estimate of, 750 ERUs include the light plant, for example? And also how that'll be allocated to the sewer and the water funds?
That's something I'll have to look into to see if CMLP facilities have been included in.
Well,
in
my
the
sense
purchase
is they
area.
would be assessed a fee, just like they're presently assessed a water sewer fee, and we're assessed electric, utility costs. So I would imagine for equity, it's just a cost of their doing business. That'd be my understanding, but we'll certainly explore those, these nuances.
Good thing we have a year.
Well, let's say 6 months to 8 months. The
Okay,
town
yeah.
meeting process,
Yeah.
we start tomorrow, right, for the next one.
So, and it's, the assessment is on each parcel. So if CMLP has a separate parcel, it will be that parcel.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any more hands up?
I don't see any, no.
For convenience.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I'm on the RAC committee as well, Dave. And so I'm curious about, is this a new funding source that you're bringing online? So it wasn't before.
That's correct.
Okay, and then, looking at what, 1.6 million, that's your estimate. Would that be every year, or would you actually fix things and you wouldn't have to charge as much later?
No, I think it's 1.5 to 2 is a estimate at this point. And we will be doing a lot more work on the stormwater system, including identifying needs. Part of the challenge we have for the cost of the program is the regulatory compliance, which is something which we don't control. But every time we have a regulated utility, they tend to just get more and more and more aggressive. And we've seen it with every other utility. So to start out with, that's our estimate is 1.5 to 2 million a year.
So, you know, I'm from the RAP committee and our water flows into Concord. And so I don't know if there's a team effort here, it doesn't make any difference, but
I'm sorry, did you say the RAD committee?
RAP committee is Water Resource Advisory Committee.
Right, so you're an Acton resident.
That's right.
All right, thank you. It's just, we don't know the vernacular over here.
I barely know. So, by the way, stormwater folder, is that on the web?
Yes, what do we have on the web at this point?
We do have a stormwater website, and you can find additional information there.
Oh, okay.
As well as additional information on the Stormwater Enterprise
Can
Fund
I
that
get a
we're
copy of the
discussing.
folder you passed around, is that possible?
Yeah, there's information on the, right now, there's no, we haven't even presented a bylaw yet, so this is draft.
Premature.
But yeah, at this point, but the bylaw will be posted with the information for, the hearing next week. And then posted on the web as the commission sort of volunteered.
Thursday, is that right?
What's that?
Next week is.
Next Thursday.
Yes, thank you for your time.
Robert Hilsinger, 102 Central Street. We have some private schools. Will they be surprised to get a tax bill?
It is not a tax, so they shouldn't be surprised. Now, as far as outreach communication, I'm not sure, we haven't gone to them directly at this point. We can certainly inform them, but they have the value and benefit of stormwater management across town, so I don't know about the surprise. We'll try to minimize that. Yeah.
Everyone.
Okay,
From everyone?
that's nothing else on the screen, so.
Mention the action item.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, the action item, just so that we can then sort of advance this. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would move to have the Public Works Commission accept the proposed language subject to correct numbering of the Stormwater Utility Enterprise Fund bylaw to be presented along with the motion to approve Article 16 at the 2024 annual town meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you so much for your
Thank
time.
you. Thank
That was
you.
a great question. Nice to get questions. All right, so we're on to the director's report. It's a big one.
It's the big one. We're doing well here, so let's hope we can move things along. I think to start, we're gonna go with, we have a new hire. We talked about our, facilities manager. Russell Carlstad has been with us about a month.
Give or take.
Give or take. Russ, you want to come on up and as part of the introduction, we're very pleased. Russ comes
Where
with,
do you want me?
you come over here. It
Sure.
tends to be what we call the hot seat,
Take Steve's seat.
although the facility manager can maybe adjust the temperatures, I don't know. But Russ comes with a variety of, in history, background, professional experience. Russ, maybe you can give your, little preview better than anybody.
Yeah, 13-year military vet, went to school for architecture, worked in the field of architecture for 20+ years. Engineering background, while I was in school, HVAC design. I worked as a junior designer in HVAC firm, as an engineering firm in Cambridge for 5 years before I got into architecture. Yeah, then I moved out to Arizona. I got into facilities management out there after the downturn in the economy, and I've been doing that ever since. So it's a good wrap up of all the trades and experiences I've had.
And it is interesting, Russ, before we hired him, had some experience with some of our, municipal facilities, that hands-on, correct?
Yeah, so I was on the design team for Beatty Center and Concord Children's Center. It was fun to walk back in those buildings again, and as I drive by the Concord Children's Center, I see that one old condenser out there that was a big argument. As 20 years ago when we built that building, one of them's still sitting there.
So we have 28, 29 different facilities, sizes, shapes, structures. Russ is in the process, during the honeymoon period of sort of looking at getting exposure, visiting them all, trying to do sort of his own needs assessment. Facilities has been was a program under the town manager's office, and then just past July is when Public Works stepped in to start providing assistance, and now we're sort of folding facilities in. You know, Russ has an operations group, you know, that reports to him, all sorts of skill sets. So we figured we'd start including some information and updates in the packet. So Russ, you talk about some of the.
This is your police and fire station. You got failed masonry on the exterior wall from long-term water damage. We're expecting some pricing back on that, see what the magnitude of damage is to the pocketbook. But it needs to be repaired sooner than later because the brick's gonna start falling out of the wall, another couple more freeze-thaw cycles. And we're gonna have to fix the water issue up above with some gutters, and we'll address that after we repair the masonry and then do some necessary interior work because the moisture has ruined some of the interior spaces. New carpet over at the Hunt. So that went in. Everyone's happy with that. We gotta do some follow-up painting on there and this was all set up pre-Russ, so I'm just taking the credit for it. Here's your basement over at the townhouse. So that's 1 or 2 new pumps that was put in. And you see the new boiler on the right, and the existing boiler to remain is in very bad shape. And that's gonna have to be looked at for replacement. And I guess we do have some funds that were earmarked for that. So we're gonna look at that as the overall updates to the HVAC equipment over at Town Hall. But that went along really well. The crew did a lot of the pre-work. So the vendor was able to come in, do the work real fast and get out. Got a couple hiccups after it was installed, but that's to be expected. But our crews were able to go over and take care of that.
A side story on this, and this is one of the challenges Concord has, is we did a replacement of a boiler because we didn't have the time to do and vet a lot of alternatives, you know, in anticipation of the winter. So there was a decision to move quickly to replace one of 2 antiquated boilers. There is an interest in revamping the HVAC and making it much more sort of greener and sustainable.
As possible.
The challenge is always going to be it's functional. We have other facilities, for instance, we didn't mention the bathrooms next door, you know, are not working. And so, you know, we got to get to the point of, you know, getting caught up, and there's going to be the balance, and Russ is going to be everybody's best friend until he has to say no to a few people. But, you know, we're going to have a budget. We're still learning kind of what the commitments were made, you know, before Russ, and then use his expertise to try and help us, you know, target, you know, the investments to, you know, protect the town's interests and you know, spend wisely. But that's just an example of, you know, oftentimes facilities, there's a lot of reactionary needs. We're hoping to get beyond that with, you know, asset management and scheduled preventative maintenance.
Yeah, we're basically family therapists. So as we go into a project and a lot of negotiation.
I think it's great that Russ is on board.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, when it was given to Public Works, dumped on Public Works, you know, there was no one who was really obviously the right person to be leading it, and now it looks like we've got that start.
And then I will give, you know, Aaron McCloskey credit for helping us bridge, you know, the time.
Definitely.
And, you know, it's kind of nice when you have multifaceted, sort of what I call subject matter experts, but you're right, Jim, this is really a niche and it takes the effort, not, you know, as well as dealing with snow emergencies and grounds and everything else. Dave?
So I'm just trying to wrap my mind around facilities.
This is a facility right here.
All facilities in the town that aren't schools?
Municipal
structures,
yes. Yeah,
Correct. Just trying to, this is under DPW.
Now it
I'm a
is.
slow learner. This is under.
We'll get along fine.
Now under DPW, now under DPW, where it wasn't.
No, it's under Concord Public Works, CPW.
CPW.
There you go.
Yeah.
But yes, it was not something in our
Portfolio.
authority, responsibilities. There is a certain logic to it,
Mhm.
and I think this was a startup department. And oftentimes I've heard that when you have a startup, under the town manager's auspices and finance director, it makes sense. But the first team did a good job. When we lost the former, manager, it was an opportunity to sort of reshuffle. And, that's what we've done. And the town manager is, obviously, has confidence in public works. And this is really an operations, oriented, sort of, group. And, Russ, when you say you inherited, you're gonna inherit all the good, bad, and ugly as well. But, he's got a good team, and, the people who are doing the work, really solid. Now we have sort of leadership to try and help, navigate.
Yeah, that's all true. There's a good bunch of employees right now in the facility side, skilled tradesmen. And we look to do more stuff.
Great.
This was in this building. He added a wall to make it more functional upstairs in the building, department offices.
Yeah.
So that just got completed. It's a little through process.
These are the things that you would have to generally hire a contractor, or if you're a weekend warrior, you might try yourself. But, we have in-house skill sets, but it's, limited. We can only do so much.
Yeah, something like that's minor. That'd be like $20,000 to outsource that wall on the prevailing wage, because your electrical, fire protection, painting, bunch of different trades. But we did it in here for probably $3,000 in material and the labor. So anything, if we can expand our skill sets and our base, we can do a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
Great. I think, Russ, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Nice
New member of the
Thanks,
senior
Nathan.
management team here. So Jeff Morosky, who is our water sewer superintendent.
Good evening, Jeff Morosky, Water and Sewer Superintendent. This is the first of 4 slides in the presentation for water and sewer. It's featuring 2 different things that are kind of related. To the right of the slide, the commission members will probably recognize the test rig that the crew had created to be able to do trainings of corporation taps under a pressurized water main. So we have 2 of our employees doing corporation drilling on the 2 right-hand slides. And to the left, we had water main breaks in Ministerial. We mentioned Ministerial, the drain issue. We have 8-inch AC water main very close to the drain structure, and the drain structure was very deep excavation. The contractor did a reasonably good job of trying to protect that main, but AC mains are, by their nature, they're brittle. They're not as robust as either cast iron or even better ductile iron. So we ended up experiencing 2 breaks. It's AC waste, so it has to be treated and handled. You can see that we've got a special PPE is being used to cut that AC main to protect the workers. They've gone through training, safety training. And then the picture that's second from the left is our bagged, taped, labeled AC waste that we'll be having disposed. And unfortunately, it can't ship to New Hampshire anymore. Now it has to ship to Ohio. Next slide.
Just on that note, the training, what the guys are working and learning to do is specialized kind of hand tools, which historically your learning opportunity would have been in the trench at 2 a.m. wet, damp, raining, who knows what, and whatever they can retain. But I think credit to the new operations or assistant water sewer superintendent and crew leader, Nate Nichols, who said we want to do it in a controlled environment, give them a chance to ask questions, walk them through it. It's just it's just a whole other approach to, just watch and observe and stand back, and it just give all the operators that expertise just in a controlled environment. Just even setting up the apparatus to do it, just talks about kind of that skill set that these guys bring to the table. So, I think, and Jeff has been very supportive of those, the operators sort of, learning and growing, and we got a lot of new employees who really haven't had this exposure, so.
Very quick question. What's AC waste? I'm sorry, it's asbestos cement, sometimes called transite. So it's, that's why There's a special respirator with filter cartridges that the workers are using as they're cutting that
Is it in
material.
the pipe? Is it in the pipe?
It's what the
It is
pipe
the
was
pipe.
made of.
Oh, okay, okay. wow.
It's, and the real problem is when it becomes crushed
Mhm.
and airborne,
Uh-huh.
it
Yeah,
becomes
yeah.
a real risk.
Yeah.
And the industry, there's what we call transite pipe in a lot of systems. When it's wet, it's not problematic, but as soon as you start cutting it, operators used to just saw cut this material, it would flake out, and as soon as you disturb it, it becomes a hazardous material. And hence, that's just the precision of, only taking out the material you need to, and then having the handling, sort of collecting it and managing it and then disposing it and having all those records. These are all things that come with the cost of, operating a system.
So Jeff, how much of that AC piping do we have? Do you have a sense?
It's probably about 25 miles of pipe out of the 130.
We've also been prioritizing AC pipe projects for our
Removal.
replacement projects.
That was my question, because
Butternut was an example.
because I would think that if you now have to ship it to Ohio, pretty soon,
But
get, the disposal of it is gonna be much more expensive.
correct.
And that therefore, when the opportunity comes, hopefully we'll take advantage of replacing it.
Yeah, and we replace it and often leave it in place,
Oh,
because as long as it's
Oh, you
buried,
just go around it.
you just,
Okay.
we
Okay.
have an alternative route.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay,
So we
cool.
minimize the amount that we
Okay.
actually have to handle exposed.
This is the second water slide, and this is featuring some wastewater work. This is next door at our Lowell pump
That
station,
brick
which is,
building right there.
yeah, which is our largest sewage pump station. It handles most of the flow of the Seward community. To the left of the slide, the workers are actually spray jetting a caked up grease blanket that forms at the top of the water. And then using a suction vac to be able to suck up that broken up grease. And to the right, we've talked about rag wastes and inappropriate
Yeah.
things to flush down toilets.
Right.
The Lowell station is built with bar racks where flow comes in from the influent and it screens out some of that material, but it's not automatically removed. We have to have our labor staff go in and remove that material. So this is periodic maintenance. It's not a daily activity. But it's just one of those things.
Is it like a problem that gets worse and worse as?
It's an ongoing maintenance. It doesn't get worse. We made some improvements at the facility to make this maintenance easier. But it's still, what's that show, Dirty Jobs or, whatever it is. I mean, they love to feature these sorts of, because literally someone has to do it. And our interest is that they're protected. The environment's controlled, the monitoring happens when they go into these confined spaces. These were things that have been going on forever, and the conditions, we've greatly improved them, but, it's a nature of, wastewater, service. Just.
This is the third slide, and the commission may remember that we had done a rehabilitation of the White Pond well a couple of years ago, and that was more comprehensive. There's a lot of natural iron in the water in this vicinity of the aquifer and what contributes flow to the White Pond well. And there's bacteria that grow that use that iron as part of their metabolic process, and it creates buildups of iron deposits. You can see the iron deposits on the well bowls. This is a vertical turbine well, 10 stages to it. They're pulling that up. They're going to assess the mechanical components where they did a pump test just to see what the flow capacity was at the beginning, but they're not actually cleaning the well casing, the well media. They're focusing on the pump itself, the pump column, the motor. They'll assess that, and there's budget in this project where if there's any minor repairs that have to happen, we'd have the ability to replace that. But this is 2 years out, and we've got some, appreciable buildup on that well.
nothing like it used to look when we didn't do the routine, sort of more scheduled maintenance. So some example of, preventative work rather than just completely, reacting to. Usually in the old days, you'd wait, the well would plug, you wouldn't get any flow, and then you'd emergency get someone in to take a look at why, and they pull it out. And now we know the quality, we know sort of that every couple of years we need to pull it out, clean it, inspect it, and, make any sort of minor, mechanical improvements.
This is the fourth water and sewer slide, and there's kind of a lot to unpack here, but I'd like to preface this. Rainfall can be a double-edged sword for us, and it really helped us out in calendar 23 when we had water restrictions and some limited ability, or no ability for that matter, to get Nagog water supply. So there was a lot of rainfall, and it was generally a very wet year. So when you get that rainfall, it's not just what falls on the ground and then runs off into the storm drains and catch basins. It's actually percolating through that porous material, which is the soil, and it gets down to a groundwater table, and that groundwater table can come up and down, and it'll flow on a gradient the same way that water flows downhill on pavement. That fact that the water table could come up in a wet year, it was kind of adversely impacting the sewer system and also private properties, sump pumps, perimeter drains, area drains. So the slide to the top right is just a typical schematic we've shown the commission before. It kind of shows you where extraneous water, which is not sewage flow, how that can get into the sanitary sewer system. And this past Friday, we pushed out, the commission may have noticed that we pushed out a news and notice on the subject of sump pumps. In addition to the news flash, there was a link in that news flash to this informational document that was collaborated on between Sal in engineering and Giovanni Caceres, my water and sewer engineer, educating the public on what should be done and what shouldn't be done, where sump pump flow should go and where it shouldn't go. But that is a problem. It's a prohibited discharge to the sewer system. It's in our rules and regs that it's not allowed. They do exist out there, and it's actually difficult to police that, if you will. To the right of the slide, if you want to.
Before you go,
Sure.
the consequences of it are also very significant in that it's taking up capacity that could otherwise be allocated for economic growth, development, affordable housing. So it's extraneous flow that is expensive to treat and taking up capacity that we really don't have control over because it's dependent upon the operations of what's going on at that property. What are they doing with that basement? Is it livable space? Is it, supposed to be dry and not? These are things that we can't really manage, and it's certainly hard to monitor.
It's also flow that gets into the system that's not metered. It's not metered on the water side, so it's not billed as a sewer charge as well. So that's kind of a double whammy. This graph right here, we track our permit required 12-month rolling average. That's what the up and down line represents in the dashed magenta line going across the top. That's the actual permit number. That's a 12-month rolling average. So that continues and the old month falls off as a new month adds on. I mentioned that 23 was a very wet year. It affects this, and when we provide the updates in the director's report, we'll take a look at what it was for the same period in the previous year, just for comparison purposes. And the commission probably noticed that in this particular report, November 23 was 200,000 gallons per day average greater than November of 22. December was 400,000 gallons per day average greater than December of 22, and then
500,000.
right, 500,000 gallons per day average greater for January. And February's average is significantly lower than what January's was, so the flow was coming down. We had a wet year, number one. We had a warm snap where we got whatever snow melt we had was happening in the month of January and the beginning part of February, where normally it would be happening in March or sometimes April. In February, we only got 3/4 of an inch of rain, so we didn't get that much rain. We had almost a third of an inch of a rainfall in the last 3 days of February, so we kind of got a surge at the tail end of the month. But it wasn't a very wet month, so we're expecting that there will be a reflective impact that would lower the water table as a result of lower precipitation. But the spring is generally a wet time of year, whereas the summer and fall is a drier time of year. But that very last data point, it's a little tough to read. We've got the data that's going to be submitted in our DMR report. That's the monthly reporting we have for compliance on our NIPD's permit that we submit to EPA and to Mass DEP. We're going to be submitting that 12-month rolling average is right on the nose at 1.2 MGD. And the only other image on this slide was just the.
Well, I'm just gonna say before we go here, this is, when people say, how much capacity do we have? And we only need a little bit. We are, right now, we don't have any excess capacity. Now, we have trends, and you can see, the average is gonna be less, but regularly, this is a rolling 12-month average. And really, the design of a system rolling is, what volume can be treated through your facility, because there's a flow and a load. And we've been told by the regulators, flow matters just as much as load, or, the nutrients or metals or anything else that's being pushed through. That becomes where we no longer control our own fate and destiny. This is where I've cautioned we could get a consent order, which basically now puts it at the mercy of the regulators to determine what are we doing, what kind of planning do we have. We have so much wastewater planning. The problem is we just don't have solutions. And no matter how hard we've tried to get some reasonableness into something with the regulators, we have gotten no, opportunity. So at some point, and this may be the point, we're going to be informed that you cannot accept additional flow until XYZ. And I've tried to caution people. That's when people come with, whether it's a bedroom or a 40B, every drop matters. And at this point, we've highlighted the fact that we've been at risk. The challenge is, it's really, we invest in our collection system to tighten it. But even if we tightened it, there's still going to be a certain amount of inflow infiltration. That's just by design. And that was where we're particularly concerned about the sump pumps, because there's a lot of flow, and we know people are complaining about it being wet and they're in floodplains, and we're getting all sort of the other complaints. But we also know that the sump pumps that used to be discharging out on the yards are magically disappearing. And I'm not sure it's because they're not needed, it's just we can't see them. And this is a problem. So it's a real kind of catch-22. When we talk about capacity, we talk about opportunities of increasing our flow at the treatment plant or possibly partnering with MCI. That's why we're looking at these larger initiatives. And Concord's not alone with our challenge. There was a recent report with the MBTA communities and areas like, communities like Littleton, which are being asked to expand through zoning, density, and services. And we're not MWRA. We all have caps. And so I think something has to change, but we're just kind of putting out there that we haven't been, crying wolf. It's a very real concern. But the last time we really exceeded was back in 2010. This was during the major flooding. I don't know if you recall the March flooding, and we were not alone. And I think the regulators looked at, in general, a lot of systems were having problems and they did not come down heavy, but it's hard to say. I mean, we're hoping we're part of a larger regional impact.
So what happens when you go up like that one year when we went up? What did the regulators do?
In 2010, nothing.
Okay, because they were giving everyone, right,
We basically had conversations. They
So
knew
when
there were
did-
problems.
next time, when,
Don't know. To be determined by them, not us.
so you said, oh, sorry, go ahead. You said like a consent decree can lead to XYZ. What is the XYZ?
Consent decree says we need an updated planning effort. Cause you obviously are not working within your budget, your allowance. You need to spend more on X, Y, Z.
Which
And there'll
is,
be a schedule, infiltration programs.
and they would determine what those.
Yeah, we would then have a schedule and program that they would be, we reporting to them. They'd be sort of the judge and jury on how effective we are.
They would set milestones on certain deliverables, and you can negotiate the best you can and get the most favorable resolution in the town's favor, but ultimately the regulators are holding the cards once you get into this situation.
So I'm just independent of what they want or not. So what are concrete actions we could take to bring this down?
We have tried negotiating permit, looking at our permit to increase the throughput on volume, but decrease the nutrients by increased treatment.
Yeah, but let's say it stays at 1.2 million gallons per day. That's it.
We'd be looking at possibly a groundwater discharge over at the wastewater treatment plant that could be very expensive.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it was about a $4 million effort.
Okay, that's now.
Yeah, now it's gonna be something completely different. Looking at expanding, we've looked at groundwater discharge sites around town. We'd have to do more. We might have a moratorium to force certain investments before we can,
Moratorium on what?
on new connections. Basically, you cannot connect anybody new until you spent, the resources, energy, and spend. The real problem is a lot of communities don't have a lot of alternatives.
Yeah, that's fine.
They're
Yes.
regulating groundwater discharge now, almost like it's surface water. The difference is there's a hydrogeologic constraint to it. And so we are at an impasse right now where, we need to, policies and regulations need to, we may be at a point where we need to have broader discussions. We do have the governor's office engaged.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Governor has been to Concord and has listened and heard about our challenges. We brought in Congresswoman Trahan's office to help us because there maybe need to be more of a regional political, sort of approach to this. But as far as engineering goes, it's really, we don't have a lot of, there's no silver bullet to this.
Do we have an inventory of the sump pumps?
No, the inventory of some pumps, some pumps can be,
If someone installs it, they don't need a permit.
they don't need a permit.
They can just.
That's right. And we don't have a police state where we can get in and sort of, we will monitor as we get into properties and we're replacing meters and that sort of thing. But some pumps can be, set up and broken down, quickly.
We will get into a lot of basements in the meter replacement program. So we'll have opportunities to make observations of properties in the course of doing meter replacements.
Are we legally allowed to make these observations or is there?
No, I think we'd be, there's an education before regulation, always, and, we're trying, with the educational component, it's, the challenge is someone willing to go the extra expense of putting in a dry well on their property to manage, what, they want to keep the basement dry, or they willing to displace it to another part of their property. And it's just, it's a challenge, because the real estate value in Concord is every square inch has value. And if you can't build up or out, building down is that much more, feasible. The only challenge is, well, in Concord, we know Assabet, Sudbury, Concord River, we're in low areas. We have a lot of stormwater challenges because of, you know, the character of the community. You know, 3 rivers.
So some communities have instituted sewer banks to offset the removal of I&I for the privilege to add in sewage flow. I don't know if that's ever been considered in Concord, but I know that similar situations to this, that is a possible avenue.
So what Weston and Sampson did a report on infiltration. And staff is going to be looking at the options that they suggested. So I think that if we can continue to educate the commission as you learn more and we try and figure out what kind of things are there, that'd be good.
And we will be doing some work with Weston and Sampson on our I&I program. That's the inflow and infiltration. That's contributions that aren't desirous into the collection system. Some mitigation, lining pipes, you know, replacing manholes or lining manholes and that sort of thing. Education to the consumer. And we're also going to be working with them on revisiting our comprehensive wastewater master plan, because that is now 25 years, you know, and every 20 years would be a good time to revisit it. So that'll allow us to evaluate, well, what are our existing needs, and do we have to realign commitments that we had for potential sewer to areas of town that really doesn't look realistic, given infill and other, you know, affordable housing, economic growth development, MBTA. We may have to shuffle the deck, but it's, you know, right now, you know, the real driver is, you know, are we, you know, this is extreme, but the regulations, it does give them a hook. And that's what we're sort of flagging.
Is taking over the MCI Concord wastewater site?
That's an option. But even with that option, it's a very small system, but we are talking about maybe using, if there's gonna be regional value and benefits to what we do there, and there's discussion, can we look at potentially getting the regulators and, you know, our, you know, local representatives together to say, you know, this is where Concord is. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to be good actors. We need some relief. We need to have something that makes sense for all of them. Yeah.
If that were to come to fruition, that would be about 100,000 gallons a day coming off of this plant, because it would be treated and disposed of at the MCI plant.
Okay. Because the state knows, I mean, they've known for years that we're interested. I think that was the one thing that they had in their plan specific to Concord.
Yeah, on the MCI, they did flag that we would be, you know, sort of, they would be willing to hand over the keys to the wastewater treatment plant with certain, you know, consideration, and that's important. So, all right, Jeff, thank you.
Thanks.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Sven. Yeah.
So PFAS. So there were new measurements in February.
Different compounds, right?
Oh, on the monitoring
Yeah.
requirements,
So
yeah.
is there anything out of the
No, the real,
unusual?
no, they're kind of expanding the universe of what PFAS compounds of potential
Yeah,
interest.
our measurements here.
No, our measurements are still consistent. You know, we've been monitoring at all of our facilities, and basically we know those, Hugh Cargill and, Second Division and NAGOG, we know are all on those to exceed, you know, what the EPA says they're gonna, the new standard that should be released any week now. They're saying, and it was gonna be March, where they were gonna finalize their new standard of 4 parts per trillion for certain compounds.
Okay, and then one final question on MCI. They are our largest
It's a big
customer
deal.
for water.
Water, so MCI, very
So,
important.
If that revenue falls off,
Mm-hmm.
what is the impact on the
Rates.
on the rates?
We're in the process of evaluating that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. And we're looking at somewhere about $800,000 a year.
Yeah.
And it will be lost. because they are relocating. And it's interesting, we are regulated with a capacity with water, but you know, that's not really it's not a regulatory constraint that we have.
You had a question?
Yeah, so, I'm sorry, naive, I thought Woodward and Kern was running a sewer, but I guess you're running it privately, is that right?
No, so Woodard and Curran does contract operations for our facility, the municipal facility. Contract operations, or they work under us, but it's for fee, just like they work in Acton,
Okay,
same idea.
and what is MCI?
That's the
prison.
Rotary, the MCI, the prison.
Which will turn into condos, I guess, I don't know.
Well, that's, you join the
Many years.
discussion.
Many years.
Yeah. Okay, so.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
Steve, I'm gonna do highway grounds very quickly while you come up, okay? The highway grounds, Aaron and McCloskey is actually another meeting right now, but basically, a lot of tree work, tree maintenance activities over at, Sleepy Hollow. You kind of see the crews, his crews kind of, working on, sort of, just routine, maintenance in Sleepy Hollow. The crews are doing a lot of the skilled labor work, you know, reconstructing and building catch basins, and this is over in Strawberry Hill Road. A lot of kind of masonry, cement work and plumbing. Again, all in-house, you know, resources. They are in-house, we're repaving the compost site. And Aaron was telling us they took, you know, put it right down to base and are kind of reconstructing the parking area and access area for the compost. And we're gonna move on to Steve. Oh, go ahead.
So the recycling and solid waste survey that you have to send to the state,
Yeah.
it isn't just what the towns does, it's what the town service does. Is that correct?
Jim, I can't speak to what.
Because the numbers look
Yeah.
like, so the question that I had is, what do private haulers have to do that, you know, collect trash in Concord?
That's a good question. We'll have an answer for you at the next meeting. Okay?
Sounds good.
Yes. Duly noted. All right.
All right,
Steve.
yeah, for the record, Steve Dukran, town engineer. We just got a couple of items to report on. We've shared our project here on Main Street and Walden Street. The intersection, and two engineers in the back there, they have both been involved. In fact, Saul is now our project manager. Last year, I remind you, we did put it out to bid. And construction was going to be occurring in the fall, then it was going to impact the businesses and so on. And we asked the contractor to do it in the spring. He said at a 30% increase. And he said, no, can't do that. And then the contract was terminated. It just went out to bid and we got zero bids in. No one is interested in doing this job for us. But we have alternatives. We have a couple of contractors that are currently under contract for road type work. And we're gonna approach them to see if they will take this on at a reasonable price. Other than that, if they're not interested too, we will add it to the roads paving contracts. So, and
But it has to be done by June 30th to get the state
that is correct.
funding, right?
So it is funded close to $200,000 of state funds. We know it was going to be more because the last bid did come in higher. So it is supplemented by other funds. But so, yeah, so we put out to.
We're gonna do our best.
Do our best and try to get it done. It is a small job, it's a tough location, you know, with traffic, pedestrians, businesses. And maybe that's why it's not
It's
attractive.
finicky, you know, and it's just not enough to draw someone in for that job alone. Which if we can leverage it with work that they're already doing, related work in town, then there's, you know, more potential value.
And if it is pushing up against the deadline for the grant, we will seek an extension again.
Okay.
For a couple of months to make it work. Okay. Ministerial drive, I think you all know what's going on there. The drainage has been completed. Obviously interrupted by water breaks and so on. And towards the end of last week, the contractor was out there trying to excavate the rest of the road that had sunken in and rebuild it. They have a problem of trying to compact. There's so much water in there, water in the ground. And then we had rains that brought more water in. And so right now we are waiting for a geotechnical consultant to make a recommendation as to what to do so that the repair is going to be more permanent than it has been.
Yeah, we're at $150,000 now, or?
We do not have a number, but it probably is approaching that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was unanticipated, storm related.
I'll give you another item, but I wanted to bring up one thing that occurred after the agenda was prepared. If you go up on off of Westford Road, Spencer Brook Road, you will see some Jersey barriers, water-filled Jersey barriers, colorful ones, protecting one side of a culvert there. It was maybe early Friday morning, the rail was hit and run, so we don't have a report. And the rail is not, the guardrail is not performing because of its, it's very loose. So that's why it's blocked. That culvert is high on our list for replacement. And so we have a consultant who's going to be looking into it and see whether we can just get away by replacing the rail, or do we have to do something more significant? If the culvert is compromised, we're talking about some big dollars to get that going. So another one of those unexpected.
Well, it's the challenge is not completely. We already identified it as a high need, high priority for stormwater, replace the culvert. And when we did that, the antiquated or even, the guardrail system would have been installed and replaced. Now, if there was an accident, that would have probably not just limited the work to the new, guardrail area. But we're now, we start pulling the string over there and it can be a larger project than we had sort of hoped. But it wasn't completely unanticipated. Obviously, hit and run, it's a different situation.
Yeah, we didn't plan to do it so soon.
Yeah.
So Steve.
Yeah.
Main Street, Baker Avenue. Certain abutters are taking much more time. What can we do to get the abutters to make their opinions known so that we can get this project moving?
We talked about it this morning at a staff meeting. How can we deal with this? Go to them and let them know that we have to make a decision. And if they don't
If we don't hear from them, we're gonna go this way.
Yeah.
Okay.
We also want to redesign the whole thing to exclude the impact.
Yes, I support that completely. I mean, I don't know the level of the problem, but, you've got to have ability to move forward.
Right.
You're in contact with the developer for 166 Commonwealth over the potential changes to Kenny Dunn Square. Because they keep changing that plan. I shouldn't say they keep changing. They've changed the plan, which I think might have changed the driveway. I don't think that affects Kenny Dunn Square, but you're in contact with them.
So they're going through the planning process in this building, and we support that process. Plans that come in here come over to us for review.
Okay.
And when this first started and they wanted to move their driveway that would impact the intersection, we talked about they can get, if we realign the intersection, there's the potential for them to use the excess right of way and improve their parking and their access. And they seemed very interested. The hook there is they have to do the improvements. And I don't know if they are interested in doing those improvements.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions?
No, I don't see any hands up.
Okay.
No. So I think we're good from the audience. Yeah, you want?
I know Commissioner Terry is sometimes quick on the trigger with motion to adjourn. I wanted to make one extra mention for the commission.
And we still have commission.
Should I just say it from here?
Come on up. Yeah,
I'm not sure.
Jeff Morosky, Water and Sewer Superintendent. My apologies, I forgot to mention in my portion of the director's report that we'll be beginning our hydrant flushing in the west part of town, and that's gonna begin on Monday next week. It's expected to be a 2-week duration. This is a little bit earlier in the year than we've done in years past, or at least recent years past. We'll be watching the weather. We'll be doing the work between 9 AM and 2:30. And we'll be coordinating with highway just in case we needed to do some salt application to prevent freezing conditions. So I just wanted to mention that before we adjourned for both the commission's benefit.
I think I saw a sign at Strawberry Hill and Bear
Yes,
Hill.
exactly.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, I couldn't read it. I went back to fast.
Yes. Slow down.
So,
Do we need a mission?
well, do we have any?
We have commissioners' comments, yes.
Commissioner comments.
This is my
He
second,
wants to read it. He wants to read that.
this is my second last meeting.
No,
None of you have one of these.
no.
Thank
This
God.
was a Public Works Commissioner's notebook.
Oh, my God.
It was updated June 11th, 2018, when I joined the commission. I don't think, look at all that.
Wow.
So I'm gonna give it back to Alan. Alan wasn't the Public Works Director at the time, but my guess is that they've decided that they didn't need to keep updating. But the second half of it has an awful lot of the rules and regulations and things like that, so it might well be that the second half ought to be given to the whoever the chair is
Yeah.
each year, so he or she is as a nice reference point.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, you should stay till June then, right? If that was your first meeting? Why are
Yeah.
we leaving in April?
Traditions of Concord.
So that's it. I just wonder, it's been on my shelf for 6 years. And I probably looked at it 5 times.
Oh, really?
You know, when we've had different things, trying to find out
Yeah,
what the rules or regulations were at the times.
yeah, supposedly it's all online, but it's hard to find.
Yes,
Mhm.
it's hard to find.
Do we need a motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
Wait, did you have any updates? Are there any updates from committees? I
Oh,
know
my understanding is that the 2 solar projects will not be moved to town meeting.
Oh,
The one at the high school and the one at the landfill. They just don't have enough information.
Okay,
I haven't heard anything about the cell towers. So we'll have
And on,
to wait and see.
on Warner's Pond Task Force, we had 2 meetings, but they were still self-funding rules and how we
Administrative,
proceed,
okay.
so no
okay,
news there.
all right. Anybody else? No, okay. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All
Aye.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all.
Thank
very
you,
much.
everybody.